And I'll hand over to you, Lisa.
Thanks, Jennifer. So my name is Lisa, and I work for Voluntary Action South Lanarkshire, which we will be calling VASLan for the duration, just because it's easier. And we are what's called the third sector interface for South Lanarkshire. So third sector interface, basically the Scottish Government funds a third sector interface for every local authority in Scotland. So there are 32 of us. And our role really is exactly that, to be an interface between the third sector. I'll talk a little bit about what that is and what that means in a second. So for VASLan, our remit really is to operate within kind of 4 core areas of activity. So you've got volunteering development, which is my focus. You've got social enterprise development. You've got kind of supporting and developing a strong third sector, and building the third sector relationship with community planning. So it really is quite a broad, we've got people that are working in lots of kind of different areas in VASLan. We work with organisations on funding. We work with them, particularly myself, on volunteering. We work with them around governance, so helping organisations to set up, as charities, or, changing things around and making sure that they've got everything in place so that they are set up as they should be in terms of being a charity or being a third sector organisation. We work with organisations on health and social care and early years work. We offer a lot of kind of advice and guidance around policies and procedures, and we offer kind of training and development. We do run a lot of training and events, not so much in the last year, obviously, but we are kind of getting back to that now, and we're starting to have events organised over the next few months. For myself, when you're talking about helping organisations with policies and procedures, it's making sure that they've got their volunteering policies in place that they need to have in order to be able to support their volunteers in the way that they should. Because sometimes organisations might think that it can be more casual to employ volunteers, but it really, you need to have as much kind of structure and support in place as you would have for a paid employee. A little bit about really the third sector. I mean, I don't want to kind of go too basic. You might all already kind of know this, but third sector is really a kind of umbrella term that covers a range of different organisations that are non-governmental and they're non-profit making. So you're talking about charities, you're talking about voluntary and community groups, cooperatives, all that kind of thing. Any kind of non-profit organisation would come under the third sector. What the third sector most third sector organisations would sort of devote themselves to a particular issue. So for example, you might have organisations that are looking at climate change, or you might be, housing or something like that, or they might be looking at a particular group in society. So for example, people suffering with dementia, or anyone who requires support and representation. They might provide services to, related to those issues. You might work on a whole range of issues. Their focus could be local, could be national, could be global. So really the third sector is, it's an umbrella term for a lot of different organisations, but the linking thing is that they are not-for-profit organisations and they're not government organisations. So obviously in terms of kind of careers or job opportunities, really the third sector, because it has such scope, there's the same kind of scope in terms of job roles really and career possibilities. If you're working in the third sector, you could be working in volunteer management, could be working in funding or fundraising, any kind of governance, community planning or development, health and social care, a lot of support work, youth and early years work. You could be working with older people, working with people with mental health issues. or concerned with specific health issues or illnesses. You could be working in organisations concerned with accessibility, sustainability, LGBTQ issues. You know, the third sector really does have an incredible amount of scope. And I think the thing about the third sector is that it's ideally placed to allow you to work in an area that you feel kind of passionate about. It lets you do something that you feel is worthwhile and important. And that, I think, the third sector really is ideally placed to do. And that kind of leads us quite nicely into talking about volunteering, because volunteering, really, people volunteer for things that they think are important. And that could be that they think that are important to them or to the wider community, whatever they consider that community to be. It might be locally, it might be nationally, it might be globally. But volunteering allows you to work on something that you think matters. And it might be that it matters to you because of the subject matter, or it might be that it matters to you because you want to get your experience in order to then move into working for those sorts of organisations, or gain experience that leads to kind of career development. Volunteering can give you all kinds of experience. So it might be, it might be as simple as it allows you to do something that you can't do generally. So you might want to do gardening or conservation work, and you can't access that in your life for the simple reason that you don't have a garden. You might want to work with older people. Yeah, I worked for an organisation that worked with older people, and quite a lot of the volunteers that came in would say that they didn't have a relationship now with older people. Maybe their grandparents had passed away, and that it gave them that generational relationship back. It can be as simple as something like that. It can be, as I said, gaining experience that you feel will be able to get you a job that you wouldn't be able to get otherwise, gaining experience for your career. It can be kind of personal development as well, like gaining experience for yourself, gaining confidence, personal growth, learning new skills, and discovering that there are things that you can do that you maybe wouldn't have thought you were able to do. And all of these things can be gained by volunteering for something. I think something that maybe people who don't have a lot of experience with volunteering maybe don't understand is the scope of it. You can volunteer for something that is a very kind of almost casual role. It could be something very simple, but there are voluntary roles that are much more involved and require much more kind of experience and much more, much more skills. Volunteering roles can, kind of cover everything really that is covered by the third sector. If I look at the current kind of volunteering opportunities that we have just at the moment open, and sort of bearing in mind that at the moment there are a lot of opportunities that aren't open or haven't been open for the past year because of the pandemic, that's kind of starting to change a little bit now, which is great. But even the ones that we've got open at the moment, if I just go on a kind of broad subject matter, so you've got opportunities or admin and office work, you've got driving, you've got retail, you've got kind of support work, youth work, peer support, you've got the kind of conservation and gardening work, you've got animal care, you've got practical and DIY work, marketing and media, befriending, fundraising. You've got some practical and technical roles, mentoring, event volunteering, catering, wellbeing support, advice and information, sports coaching, and advocacy, and community radio. So there's so much out there, there's so much potential. And if you're interested in being a volunteer, then I think the thing about it is that you can give as much or as little of your time as suits you. And there are roles available for people that have lots of work experience, lots of life experience, or or very little. And you can decide what you want that volunteering to be for you and what you want to accomplish with it. For myself at VASLan, one of my roles is to match volunteers. So if someone comes in to us and says, I want to do some volunteering work, I don't really know exactly what I want to do, or I don't know what's out there, one of my roles is to talk to them about what's out there, what we do have available, what kind of things are you interested in? Are there things that you definitely don't want to do? Can we kind of filter all this down and narrow it down and find even a few opportunities that might be what you're looking for, and send you the details on that and see what it is that you know, are there things that interest you out of that? So there really is a lot of opportunity out there in terms of volunteering, and particularly as we're coming into summer, if it's something that you're interested in, then there definitely are things that you can be doing. Kind of maybe on a more kind of personal note, for me, I started to volunteer 14 years ago. And I know for a fact that I wouldn't be in the job that I'm doing just now if it wasn't for the volunteering that I was doing, because at the time I was working in a very different role. And when it came to changing my job, it really was that kind of background, the experiences that I'd gained in volunteering that meant that kind of gave me an insight into what I could be doing, and moving into the third sector and doing things that I felt, with no disrespect for any other role that I had done previously, but moving and doing a job that I had felt was more worthwhile on a kind of day-to-day basis, and kind of doing something that I really felt was important. And things like volunteering can really, whether you already know what's important for you or whether volunteering can kind of help you figure that out, it really, the possibilities for me are kind of endless. And you can probably tell that I could talk about this for quite some time, but I'm going to see if anyone has any questions. Oh, I'm going to go on mute because my dog's going mental.
Does anybody want to add anything to the chat function? I don't know if anybody's coming today with any experience already of volunteering that you might want to share, or perhaps any questions for Lisa about what the first steps might be if you were wanting to search for opportunities. So we've got a question here. So thanks, Lisa. Are there any volunteering opportunities for postdoc students, please?
I think that would kind of depend on the subject matter, really, of what kind of thing you were looking for. There's definitely opportunities out there that are looking for a lot more kind of knowledge or life experience than others. So I guess I would maybe need a little bit more information about exactly what kind of thing you were looking for. Okay, so yeah, I mean, as I say, at the moment, we've, whether we have it exactly what you'd be looking for at the moment, but we definitely have things like, so business mentors, things like that. There's volunteering opportunities for business mentors. There's volunteering opportunities for trustees for various organizations. So depending on what kind of organization was maybe looking for board members, that gets you into, that sort of business management aspects. Those are probably the couple that I can think of sort of offhand that I know we do have at the moment. As I say, the business mentor would obviously be looking for a lot of experience and being able to help someone who's with their own kind of businesses. But again, it's something that if there are things that you're looking for specifically, I could also work with organizations to see well, you know, I've got someone here, you maybe don't have an opportunity open right at the moment that's exactly what we're looking for, but I've got someone who has this experience, and is there something that, you know, is there a role that you might have for them?
And Lisa, I've seen on your website that you can actually go and just kind of search like current opportunities,
Yes.
and there's quite a lot actually. I was quite surprised, and you can apply filters depending on maybe location or area of interest. What would be the best sort of first step for somebody that's interested? Would it be to go and search, or would you say to speak to yourself?
Yeah, I mean, I think if you've got a kind of general idea so that you can like do those filters yourself, then yes, go onto the website and start to search and see what's available. Or on Volunteer Scotland, they're all published on Volunteer Scotland, and you can see there kind of what's available at the moment. If you're really not kind of sure enough that you don't really know what you would even search on, then just get in touch. You can get in touch with me, and you know, as I say, that is one of the things that I do in my role, and we can have a chat and see what kind of things you're interested in, and with me knowing what's there, can maybe try and find it that way.
Okay, great. We can send those links out to everyone. Actually, I can do that after the session. I think we've got another question just on the chat. So what are opportunities available for the creative sector, and how could that be a pathway into employment? And then they've given some examples.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's going to very much depend what's available at the moment. I mean, of that list at the moment, I know we've got a kind of community radio opportunity. So that would probably be where I would direct you if you're looking for a kind of a volunteering opportunity right now. But again, there are, you know, organisations that we work with that might be not advertising an opportunity, but who might work more in the kind of creative sector. And we could certainly have a look and see if there is something that they could offer you. I mean, at the moment, we've got something like 790 organisations that we can be in contact with. So there definitely is kind of scope for a lot of opportunities.
And are the opportunities that you're seeing at the moment, are they sort of mainly virtual, or are they kind of a mix now? Or?
A lot of them are virtual. And certainly have been over the kind of the past year. There's some that are starting to open up again now, and you know, obviously a lot of the retail is starting to open up, and I'm starting to be contacted by organisations who are now able to start their services up again where they haven't been able to do that. So certainly over the next kind of month or two, I would expect to see a lot more scope and a lot more opportunities that are not only online, but then I think there still will be the opportunity to do virtual kind of volunteering if that's what you want to do. I think that will still be there, but we'll have more kind of face-to-face interaction possible as well.
I suppose that makes it quite flexible as well, you know, if they do have that option.
Yeah, because a lot of the things like the befriending and things like that's been doing kind of distance befriending, I think that will continue. And you might also be able to do face-to-face befriending, but I think that virtual, that distance befriending will still be there as an opportunity.
Does anybody have any questions that they'd like to put to Lisa? Any more questions?
For housing at the moment, we don't have the opportunity open, but I'm working with the Homeless Project Scotland at the moment, so I'm hoping that they'll start to bring some opportunities on as well. Sorry, I've just seen there's another question there. Normally, when we volunteering by its very nature is not paid work. but you would normally get, travel expenses and things like that cost covered. So basically, it shouldn't cost you to volunteer. So although there isn't, you're not paid for it, you should certainly get travel expenses and things like that. And certainly for all of our opportunities, all that information is given before you would be applying.
That's a good question, actually. And I guess the nature of volunteering, like I can see from your website when you are searching, that there's such a range in hours. So, it's something that you could definitely balance with part-time or full-time work even.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
definitely. And a lot of it will be, you can do evenings, you can do weekends, some of it will be a couple of hours a week, some of it will be more than that. So yeah, there's so much scope in terms of fitting it around your own schedule and your own life.
Any more questions from anyone? There we go.
Yeah, so there's definitely, again, there's so much scope. So you will have volunteering opportunities that are short term, and then you will also have some that are longer term, depending on what you're looking for. But there's definitely opportunities that are just looking for people for kind of short term. And again, all that information is in the opportunities that we publish, so that you know immediately whether it's going to suit you or not. So it might be that during summer you can do more hours in a week, and it's a short-term thing. So that would suit you.
Are there areas, Lisa, that you are seeing or that you expect to see, a particular need as a result of the pandemic, that are particularly in need of help? Or?
I mean, I think through the pandemic, that it was kind of mentioned the distance befriending. Obviously through a lot of kind of face-to-face support was no longer available. So things like telephone befriending and things like that definitely came up. And then I think that will continue, so where someone's maybe got used to having a volunteer phone them once a week, I think that will continue even when their face-to-face services are kind of available to them again. But yeah, I mean, I think at the moment we don't really know yet what will kind of happen as we come out of the pandemic. What stuff will maybe be discarded. It was needed for the duration of the pandemic, and now it's not. But I think there will be a lot of things that will either continue or maybe need to increase. And I don't think we can really tell yet what exactly that will look like.
Sure.
I was seeing a question about Glasgow. So Volunteer Glasgow is the TSI for Glasgow.
Is there one sort of more for like the west of Scotland?
So there's one for each local authority.
Every local authority.
Yeah. So you've got VASLan is for South Lanarkshire. You've got VANL, which is for North Lanarkshire. You've got Volunteer Glasgow in Glasgow. And I'd maybe have to start looking up some of the others. But yes, there's one for every local authority.
Great, thank you. That's a good question. Any more questions from anyone? Okay, well, thank you for all the questions. I think it's been a good discussion. Lisa, would you be happy with your details being shared?
Yep, absolutely, no problem at all.
That's great. And what I'll do after today's session as well is send out some of the links that we've been talking about today. You may or may not be aware that if you are volunteering, it is something to add to your your higher education academic record. And if you've got more than 20 hours of volunteering, then you can actually apply for the Volunteer Recognition Award, which is a great thing to demonstrate to employers of your commitment to volunteering. We've also, just to let you know, we are in the process of organising a volunteering fair for all students and recent graduates, to connect you with some of the organisations that Lisa's been discussing today that do have kind of live or upcoming requirements that we can connect you with, and that might be for the summer, or it might be beyond, more of a sort of longer term commitment. I'm hoping to put out information about that next week. We're just in the process of securing organisations. It's something that we haven't been preparing for until recently, just because we haven't sort of been sure what the situation is going to be in terms of the pandemic and positions being available. But we have had quite a bit of interest from organisations, so that's hopefully going to take place on the 25th of May. It'll be online on MS Teams, and there'll be an opportunity to hear from each of the attending organisations, and then we'll move into breakout rooms, so you can have an opportunity to speak one-on-one with anybody that you're particularly interested in their opportunity, to find out more about that and how you can get involved. So definitely look out for information about that. It'll be advertised on the Careers Service virtual events page, but we'll also be putting out information on our university social media and through the academic divisions as well. I think there's a final question that's come in, Lisa. So how is the transition from volunteering to paid work available?
Yeah, I mean, it's not so much that you would move in the same role from volunteering to paid work, although that's not impossible. It's more that the volunteering role gives you experience in that field, so it's work experience effectively, and is just as valuable as any kind of paid work experience. So getting that volunteering experience within the area that you then want to move into paid work in is invaluable. Getting, developing skills that you are going to then be using in your career or in paid work, again, it's just as valuable as any kind of paid work experience. So that's really how the kind of volunteering, it's unlikely that you will transition as such from volunteering role to paid work in that sense. But volunteering gives you work experience that will then allow you to get that that next job or move into develop that career.
Yeah, I would second that. My background, I'm new to the university. I've got a background actually in in-house recruitment for a number of different organisations, and the value that employers do place on candidates with volunteering experience. I've particularly worked in graduate recruitment, and like Lisa says, that the sort of skills that we're looking for, that it can be quite difficult to gain. Volunteering can just help massively with that, and I think it just says a lot about that candidate as a person as well. So yeah, it's hugely helpful. But I also thought it was really interesting what you were saying, Lisa, about the kind of personal gains that perhaps you don't always think about as well.
Yeah, absolutely.
Think of it as a means to a particular end, but some of the personal gains as well. I thought that was really interesting.
Yeah, and the thing is that you can get both from the same role. you can get both of those things from the volunteering role that you choose. It can help you to get towards a job or a career, but it can also at the same time be giving you that kind of personal development and personal skills.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I think it's been really interesting, and thank you everybody for your input and your questions as well.
Yeah, thank you.
Oh, we've just got a comment there. So my son volunteered at Fable Vision for many hours and filming documentaries, but didn't know about a certificate. So yeah, it's definitely worth having your time and your commitment recognised on the Higher Education Award record, and yeah, mentioning it when you're applying for positions, when you're putting together your CV, your application. It's definitely something that employers will be really, really interested about. And we would quite often get candidates that would they wouldn't put it on their application forms, on their CVs. They wouldn't mention it until the last minute at an interview, and then we were like, this is what we really want to actually hear about. So
yeah,
definitely. Okay, so thank you everyone for your time, and special thanks to Lisa. And I'll follow up with some of those links and Lisa's details as well.
Lovely. Thanks so much. Thanks for your time. Cheers.